So in America, we do have adapted physical education specialists in some school districts, but to be honest with you, it's very few and far between. We have very many rural school districts that don't have any adapted physical educator. So this falls upon the general physical educator to figure out how to include those children safely and successfully. So what can this general physical educator do? One thing I've recommended is having stations. So again, if you imagine a gymnasium or outside in the field and having 50, 75, 100 children, that's just a lot of children moving around. That could be a situation that could be overwhelming for children with autism. It could be very dangerous for children with visual impairments or who use wheelchairs. So I like the idea of breaking the class into smaller clusters. So for example, during a warm-up, we can certainly have some children warming up doing cardio by doing laps around the gymnasium or the field, but other children can be doing some push-ups or sit-ups in the middle. They can be passing a ball back and forth with a peer in the middle or on the periphery. So again, you can break children up into little clusters so that rather than 50 or 100 children all doing the same thing, you have small groups of maybe 10 or 12 doing the same thing. I think this would be really important, again, for those children with autism who can get overwhelmed by just a really noisy, busy environment where everybody is moving. So now let's say we're now into the skill focus. And if we're at well, let's move to middle school and we're trying to teach volleyball. So again, if you have this large group of children, it's going to be very difficult to control that whole group. And so what makes sense just from logistics is to break them up into small groups. So we could have one group working on the forearm pass and one group working on the underhand serve, another group working on the overhead pass or setting. You can have some who also are working on defense. So now we have 4 groups. If we have 50, we're already cutting down to maybe 12 to 13 or so per group. Even if we had 100, we now have groups of 25. And then you can imagine breaking those groups into either smaller groups. So you can have 2 or 3 small groups of forearm passing and 2 to 3 small groups of underhand serving. So again, by breaking this down, we make the environment seem smaller for all the children. Now the physical educators would be walking around and monitoring the situation. Peer tutoring would be a great thing to set up. So for example, I might have a picture of the components of an underhand serve, and then I would have peers look at this picture and then talk through this with their peer and say, here's what you need to do. Don't forget to step with the opposite foot. Don't forget to hold the ball at this particular level. So again, I think using peer tutors is another model within this station model that would work. And again, I picture the general PE teacher walking around, looking at the groups, monitoring the progress. If the PE teacher sees a child not doing well or doing a skill incorrectly, that's a great chance to step in and help out. And then we rotate. We stay at each station for 5 to 7 to 10 minutes, and then each group rotates to the next station. Now, within these groups, because they're smaller, now we can include a child with a disability. It won't be so overwhelming. So here, where we have perhaps the underhand serve, we can include extra adaptations. So we might have different sized balls for the children to use. We might allow them to stand different distances to the target. We may have a peer hold the ball for a child who can't hold the ball himself, and then the child can swing and hit the ball. Even children with more severe disabilities, we can have them push a ball off a ramp to begin the process. So we can do quite a lot within those stations. So again, let's kind of review what we're seeing here. So we have large classes, and having all the children do the same thing at the same time is really not going to be an effective way for the children without disabilities. They're not going to get as many turns. They're not going to get as much feedback from the teacher, their peers, and it's certainly not going to be a good model when you try to include a child with a disability. So stations, we break it into smaller groups. Within those groups, we take advantage of peers helping peers, and then we add adaptations within that setting as well to allow for children with disabilities to be more successful. So I gave you one little model here for a warm-up. I gave you a model for if we're doing skills. A question might come up, well, what if we're doing games? How do we do this with a large group? So let's take another example that I often see in schools. So Often our sports hall or gymnasiums will have 2 courts for basketball. So if we're going to do 5 versus 5 basketball at the secondary school, you have 5 versus 5, that's 10 children, and you have 5 versus 5, that's 20 children, and that means there's a lot of children sitting and watching and not doing anything. So again, I think a good solution is we go back to this station model. So we have perhaps, let's say we have 100 children. Let's make this really difficult. And we have 20 teams of 5. So the teacher calls that teams number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there'll be 2 games going on. What are the other teams doing? Well, she can say, team number 5, you're going to practice dribbling. Team number 6, you're going to practice passing with your partner, with your team. Team number 7, we're going to work on some fitness activities, and so forth. So in the periphery of the gymnasium, you have these teams still clustered in small groups and actually working on some things related to basketball or things related to fitness. And after a 5-minute game, then we rotate. Teams 1, 2, 3, and 4 come out. Teams 5, 6, 7, and 8 come in and play against each other. And again, we still have children being active, working on their skills and things like that. So again, we do have children with moderate and severe disabilities in our general schools, and they do go to general physical education, often accompanied by a teacher assistant. But we really need to think, how is the best way to organize this type of a setting to be able to include the children? And I think stations with peer tutoring, along with modifications, is the best solution.